Hi everyone, I'm back with another video. This is probably going to be really boring if you're watching this, so treat this more as a podcast, I guess. But I just want to kind of give a recap of my experience of the really kind of high-end listening experience I had at the Source AV last week. So as you guys probably have seen from my uploaded videos, I got the chance to hear the Sennheiser HE1, also known as the Orpheus 2, also the HIFIMAN Shangri-La, which I've heard before at CanJam at RMAF last year in Colorado. And then I've also got the chance to listen to MrSpeakers Ether E, again, a revision over what I've heard at CanJam at RMAF last year, and also some do-it-yourself electrostatic headphones, which I thought was very interesting to hear. So I guess I'll start off with the HE1 because that was the first thing that I kind of wanted to get you guys to know about. So the HE1 listening session, so between the HE1, the Shangri-La, and the Ether E, they're all 15-minute listening sessions in a quiet room. The user or the listener had to book a space, so it was on a set time schedule. My time with the HE1 was short. I only got to listen to about 3/4 of Hotel California, a studio recording of it. So my impressions are probably not going to be too valuable. What I had done with my 15 minutes was, instead of spending the time to listen to 3 pre-selected tracks that Sennheiser had wanted the listeners to listen to, I decided to take some shots, some photos of the HE1. And as you saw in a previous video, I showed a video of the HE1 being powered down and powered back up. So it was more of an experience for me rather than a listening session. If you guys are interested in the listening sessions, I did record them in binaural. They're not going to be perfect recordings of what I had heard because of the nature of the binaural recording being specific to my ears. So there's that. Between the HE1, the Shangri-La, the Ether E, and the STAX SR009, I have recordings from my binaural recording sessions. So if you're interested, I'll leave a link in the description below. So then if you want to kind of hear relative differences between the 4 setups, you can. But my impressions of the HE1 were very positive. I think a lot of people had high expectations for it, myself included. So when I came in to listen to the HE1 with Hotel California, the experience was exceptional to me. They are using 8 ESS 9018S DACs in there, so it's going to be the differential balanced topology, so it's a fully balanced DAC section and amplifier section. So to me, it did carry around that Saber sound, or what they call, it's the ESS Saber sound trademark name. So it did carry that kind of brightness in the upper mid-range, but just like the LH Labs products, I thought they did a very good job at the implementation of it. So it didn't quite sound as bright as other ESS DACs I've heard, but that presence was still kind of there. Apart from that, it sounded very smooth overall throughout the whole spectrum. From the bass to the treble, it was just very smooth outside of that ESS Saber sound. The soundstage wasn't quite as large as I had imagined it to be. I'm kind of used to Sennheiser's HD800 and HD800S kind of soundstage and imaging. So I was coming into the HE1 listening event expecting that kind of similar soundstage, and it actually wasn't like that, to my surprise. Just like other electrostats that I've heard, it had very solid imaging, so being able to isolate instruments very well from one another, so very good layering. But the soundstage was more on the intimate side from what I was expecting. So that's the HE1. Moving on to the Shangri-La. When I heard this at RMAF, it was hooked up to a HM901S portable media player. I did use my own music at that time. But even with that setup, it was extremely bright for me. It was definitely not anywhere close to what I would like to prefer in a $50,000 headphone system. But this time around, it was hooked up to the Macintosh setup, and it was with one of QuestStyle's computers, so I was familiar with some of the music on there, Natalie Merchant's music and Yes and other sorts. So from my experience on the HE or the Shangri-La, as you may have seen in my Shangri-La video, I was actually pretty impressed with it, especially compared to what I heard at CanJam RMAF last year. So it still is a bright headphone. I would say it's brighter than the STAX SR009, so kind of in that kind of technical sounding headphone, as opposed to the HE1, which I heard half an hour before, which was a little bit smoother and more musical sounding, just overall more pleasant to the ears, I think. So the Shangri-La, I think, is a more technical headphone like the SR009. So it's very fast sounding, not quite as punchy as I thought it would be, especially coming from a HIFIMAN headphone, where I'm kind of used to having that planar magnetic bass just kind of in your face and what HIFIMAN is known for. So it had a little bit more of a delicate sound to it. Treble was still a little bit grainy for an electrostatic, but it was better than what I had heard at RMAF. So it is an improvement. But between the two $50,000 systems, that being the HE1 versus the Shangri-La, I definitely prefer the Shangri-La's kind of technical side, but I much prefer the HE1 in general for just overall music listening. So with that, moving on to the MrSpeakers E. Sorry, I didn't get a good picture of this at the event. The lighting conditions were pretty much very, 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 very dim. So the photo I did get with the Shangri-La, that one was a like 20-second exposure. So it's just a very long shot. So I didn't get one with the MrSpeakers E, but it looks very much like the Ether Flow, but instead of the red ring, well, I guess it's the blue ring now. The Ether E has a blue ring instead of the red circular ring, but it pretty much looks like the Ether Flow. Sound-wise, it was connected, or system-wise, it was connected to the head amp Blue Hawaii, which is kind of the go-to STAX headphone amplifier, or electrostatic headphone amplifier, and that was connected to the Cord Dave, I believe. So it was a very high-end setup. I have not heard the Dave before, so I don't know how much the sound that I heard was contributed from the Dave. But nonetheless, when I listened to the Ether E, again, I thought it was an improvement, just like the Shangri-La. I thought it was an improvement from what I had heard in CanJam RMAF. So it was nice to hear that. Compared to other E-Stats that I've heard, Dan had specifically tuned this headphone to be not quite as technical sounding, and from what I listened to, it was definitely not as technical sounding as the SR009 or the Shangri-La. So it was a very more kind of musical experience. The treble is a little bit soft, and the upper bass is a little bit boosted from what I heard, so it's got a typical MrSpeakers smooth, warm kind of sound to it. The mid-range as a whole is a little bit boosted for me, so it had a more intimate kind of in-your-face sound. So there was that. But yeah, just an overall improvement from what I had heard before. I think MrSpeakers is doing a great job at trying to make a headphone that is containing technology that can do specific things, like the STAX and other electrostatic headphones have very, very nice treble presentations. So the Ether E had a very smooth sounding treble, not too grainy, but also keeping the MrSpeakers signature sound, which is kind of that warm, inviting sound. So it's a more musical listening experience. And the last thing that I wanted to mention was Nerdling, who is a forum poster on HeadFi. He is into do-it-yourself electrostatic headphones now, kind of following Chinsetta Wong, who is also another big DIY electrostatic headphone builder, probably the most well-known one. But Nerdling had created a Orpheus clone, as you can see in the picture here, and it was just very, very, very interesting to hear. I had previously heard a do-it-yourself electrostatic headphone, but this was just on a completely different level from my experience. If you took the SR009 and the SR007 Mark I, which was my favorite STAX headphone ever, you kind of get a hybrid between those in this do-it-yourself electrostatic headphone. And I think something like this, the work that Nerdling has put into this throughout the last few years, just revising this, kind of demonstrates the core of this audiophile community, in that you learn about the principles of how technology works, and then you can apply it yourself in your own projects. And MrSpeakers actually started his own company because of this process of just learning how planar magnetic headphones work and modding the Fostex T50RP, and then building his own company based off of that. And the same thing with what's his face, Zach from ZMF headphones, so the ZMF Omni and other headphones in that company. He started off with just modding T50RP headphones, and so the do-it-yourself community is very cool to see happen in this audiophile hobby, and it's very cool to be able to see this actually be made into a product that sounds really good. And so in the case of this headphone that Nerdling had made, the Orpheus clone, it was just a very incredible musical experience to me. It was, again, a hybrid between the 09 and the 07 from STAX. So it's got a very technical sound and also a very musical sound. So it's just a very nice balance between the two. In terms of ranking these electrostatic headphones, you cannot buy the Shangri-La nor the HE1 as its own headphone. You have to buy it as a system. So the price range for both is around the $50,000 to $55,000 range, which is very unaffordable. So I automatically rule those out in terms of something that I would recommend to somebody. I do think the HE1 is worth a listen. So if you are going to a CanJam-like event, I definitely recommend trying out the HE1, even if it's for 15 minutes and they have their own set list. I think it's a very cool musical experience for you to enjoy. In terms of buying something, the MrSpeakers Ether E is the next best option in terms of being able to afford an electrostatic headphone. MrSpeakers is going to price it at well under $3,000, so it should be relatively affordable. But I did like how it sounded overall in terms of its sound signature and being able to keep the electrostatic kind of quality to it. Apart from that, I will move on to the STAX SR009, which you can see here is the setup that I had listened to it on. So I had previously only really heard the 09 on either Kevin Gilmore electrostatic headphone amplifier, or the Blue Hawaii, or the is it Woo Audio Electra? Oh, Eddy Current Electra. So between those setups, none of them had really wowed me, to be honest, even on the Blue Hawaii. On this tube amp from STAX, the SR009 Mark II, I was actually impressed with it. So on the Blue Hawaii, the 09 kind of gets a more open sound to it. The soundstage is pretty large and just very open sounding. That's typically not what I look for in a headphone. I look for solid imaging before I do in soundstage. And so with this tube amp from STAX, I thought the imaging of the 09 was actually better than the Blue Hawaii. The soundstage being a lot more intimate, but soundstage and headphones compared to speakers, compared to what the original recording was, is kind of a whole new topic. But in my own experience, I prefer something with better imaging over the soundstage. So on this particular setup, I actually did enjoy the 09. It still carried the bright sound to it, which isn't my preferred sound, but it was a lot more listenable compared to what I heard before. So yeah, that was my experience of the HE1 from Sennheiser, the Shangri-La from HIFIMAN, the Ether E from MrSpeakers, this Orpheus clone from Nerdlean, and the SR009 from STAX. In the description below, I'll leave links to the binaural sound recordings I did. Speaking of which, Hotel California was the track played on the HE1 system. I had only heard that on the 09 system as well. So I have two recordings of Hotel California, one from the HE1, one from the SR009. On the Shangri-La, I had heard Natalie Merchant's Carnival song, and as well as the MrSpeakers E. So I have three recordings of that, one on the MrSpeakers E, one from the Shangri-La, and one from the 09 as well. I did not get a chance to record a song from the Orpheus clone, unfortunately, because the thought of recording audio from the headphones was something I came up with later. But yeah, so thanks for watching. I know this is a long video for impressions of just pictures, basically, but if you're listening to this like a podcast, I guess that's fine. But yeah, thanks for listening, and stay tuned for a video coming up soon after this. Thank you.